I'll watch you going down.
Cherry.
It's neat to see how you take a lot of the stuff that's in horticulture common-wise, but you show them in all their diversity and all their cultivars and species and everything else.
Species and forms and wild forms. Yeah. So it makes it much more interesting. Cherry. No, let's go out to the tortoise. No. And of course I have pseudo bonsai all over the place. But here's oh, here comes another one. This is sort of my miniature cactus and succulent collection. And I put plastic sheets over them now because they can't take the full hot sun. It burns them. So, but in the wintertime, these plastic sheets get cleaned off. I like dirt on them now, so it gives me more shade. And then in the wintertime, I wash them down, and then it protects them from excess rainfall. Because a lot of these things would just rot if they had too much rain. In the growing season, in the spring and in the fall, they can take quite a bit of rain. In fact, if we get October rain, I take these sheets off and let them get October rain. Because but it's amazing how tiny some of these things are. Nature is full of tiny things, and nobody grows any of them except rock garden people. And they tend to specialize in alpines, where a lot of the tiny little succulents grow in deserts in between rocks and just whatever. But they're fun, and I get to have more plants in one small area because they're so little. The cactus are just about finished blooming. A month ago, I probably would have had 20 or 30 cactus on this table in bloom. Yeah, these are more sun-loving ones that can take a bit of bright light and sun. But a lot of euphorbias and cactus, and a lot of South African succulents, a lot of Mexican succulents, things like these are Mexican, and even some ferns. Obviously, the ferns need more water than the cactus, but it survives. And I don't water. I water out here once every 10 days, and that keeps all the cactus happy, but it doesn't keep the ferns happy. There's our native goldback fern in that pot with that cactus.
That just dumped in there itself,
That came by itself, yeah. Came in by itself. Now it's been in there for about 4 or 5 years. It's amazingly adaptive. If I forget to water it and it shrivels up, I water it and it's a resurrection plant, like a resurrection fern. And I always leave some weedy blackberries just so I have some blackberries to eat. If they come down on the ground, the tortoises will eat them. Tortoises love fruit. This is from Chile, Oxalis arborescens. It's a tree oxalis. So it's fun. It tends to bloom off and on all summer.
It's true, you don't see like public collections or gardens of such plants very often.
No.
You know?
Almost never. Botanical gardens don't really have areas of little specialty, tiny things. But they're around. So out front here in the summertime is one of my sunnier areas. So this is a Mediterranean climate plants. There's a bunch of stuff from South Africa, a bunch of stuff from regular Mediterranean. There's even rosemary or two, milkweeds for the monarchs, and a whole bunch of native stuff. I think I've got 25 native species in this bed, although just looking at it you wouldn't notice that, but they're there. The rose is all native, the cocky is all native, the salvia is native, and one of the milkweeds is native.
Don,
but that area gets almost zero water, even in the drought. This gets very little water.
And in terms of maintenance of a biodiverse garden like this, what do you got to do?
prune.
Oh,
Prune and clean off dead stuff. This area is full of bulbs in the
Oh.
in the wintertime. And yeah, I mean, you can see the thatch from a big clump of that's Watsonia. But it's got all kinds of bulbs in here. So when the rains start, they do in October, November, this is thick and dense. It's like a lush meadow, just full of all green. Well, that all dies when the dry summer comes, and you got to rake that all away. So that's part of the maintenance, is getting rid of all the dead stuff. And it's particularly important on an area where lots of people walk down the sidewalk that smoke cigarettes. And so I find cigarette butts along here all the time.
Ooh.
So I try and keep it pretty bare within a foot or two of the sidewalk.
So as a gardener, you have to come in like be a little fire or something,
Yeah.
or a grazer or something.
Yes. And in the wintertime, it doesn't matter because it's so wet, cigarettes aren't going to start a fire. But in the summer, when it's during the dry season, I keep the edges pretty well trimmed, unless it's, green, lush growth. But
And that's mostly annual grasses and stuff that come through.
and bulbs.
And bulbs.
And perennial grasses. These are all big clumps of perennial grasses. That's a big clump of soap plant, or gallon, and that'll send up spikes, this tall in August, September, and the flowers bloom in the evening, and they're very, very beautiful. White flowers that are just very lacy, and in the wintertime they're in the fall they're a great thing. And then I got lots of buckwheats. In the summer, in the spring, I kind of carefully cut the grasses away from the buckwheats because they really want all year full sun, and then they thrive in this time of the year. And with zero water, they're California native and they're used to it. So, and then that's. It used to be called Coryphogeny, and now it's Lysyngia, I think. Then I got lots of aloes, summer aloes, winter aloes, and then another salvias. That's a salvia. And this is a native rose. It's finished. It's getting rose hips, but fairly dark colored one, really deep kind of ruby rose, ruby red, native to the Sierra, where I have a lot of native rose taking over my garden, but it's native to the coast. And I leave a lot of it, and the maintenance on it is if it's somewhere I don't want it to be, I just cut it off. And that includes along the road in front where people park, because I do not want them opening their car door into a thorny rose. So that would get me in trouble. But they get really pretty rose hips. They're still, this thing blooms almost constantly, and it's very fragrant. And it often has bees in it. It's a great bee plant. But you can see, I got swaths of it. But when it does finish blooming, then it has these pretty rose hips. So,
Don, it seems to me that it doesn't really bother you that the plants go do their own thing. Whereas a lot of people, gardeners, they'd be like, you can't be moving over there or doing,
No.
They want things to stay in one place.
My philosophy is if it's not hurting anything, leave it. I only cut stuff back that's hurting some other plant. And for the most part, if you really look at it, it's not hurting other plants for the most part. If that rose wasn't there, it would be kind of more just barren. It's not hurting the other shrubs.
And when you mean cutting, you're just cutting it at the base. You're not even trying to dig it out or nothing like that.
No. But this corn is a special corn. It's a tropical Andean corn. That's the main corn they grow in Peru and places like that. There comes a monarch butterfly. Anyway, but it takes a long growing season, 8 to 10 months. And so I start it really early indoors and then bring it. And since We have this incredible climate that it doesn't freeze until generally November or even December, January. The corn has a chance to mature because it's a late maturing corn. It'll still be bright and evergreen like this at Thanksgiving. I'm sorry.
So this is coastal California, where you can have these long growing seasons,
Yes.
but still sunny enough that it
Yep.
can ripen.
Yeah. And so this is a sunny spot. So this is, because the rose looks like it's taken over, but it's really not. In among here, there's a lot of tomato plants, and they've got a lot of tomatoes on them. And I've been getting more zucchini than I can eat, as everybody does. And I've got green onions and cabbage and broccoli and cherry tomatoes, regular tomatoes. And I've cut back this year. And I've got a lot of beans. I've been picking a lot of beans because we are under water restrictions, and I'm supposed to be cutting back 15 or 20% watering, and I have. But instead of 30 tomato plants, I only did 20 tomato plants.
This looks to me almost like a mix of like the hedgerows and planting beneficials, where sometimes they're separate from the garden, but you got stuff all woven like a basket all throughout.
Yeah, and it works, and I think it's. I get lots of comments from people walking by that think my garden is really pretty to look at. So I have no complaints from neighbors or the city.